The wedding photographer's invoice arrived on the same day I found the burner phone. I wasn't snooping. Not really. My wife Emily had asked me to grab her laptop charger from her car while she was in the shower, and there it was, wedged between the driver's seat and center console. A cheap flip phone, the kind you buy at gas stations with prepaid minutes. The kind people use when they don't want to be tracked. My name is David Fletcher, and I'm a financial analyst. I deal in patterns, anomalies, things that don't add up. This phone was an anomaly. I stood in our garage, the March evening air still carrying winter's bite, and stared at the device like it might explain itself. We'd been married 6 years. Together for 9. Emily worked as a marketing director at a tech startup downtown. We had a 4-year-old daughter named Sophie. We'd just closed on our dream house in Bellevue, Washington 3 months ago. A craftsman with a view of Lake Washington that stretched our budget but felt worth it. The phone was off. I pressed the power button before I could talk myself out of it. It took 30 seconds to boot up, each one stretching like taffy. The home screen showed 2 contacts, Jay and pharmacy. 17 text messages, all from Jay. The most recent was from this afternoon, 2 hours ago. Can't wait to see you Friday. Tell him you're at the conference. My chest tightened. I scrolled up. Last night was incredible. I've never felt this way. When are you going to tell David? I love you too. The messages went back 5 months. November. Right after Thanksgiving. Right after Emily had started working late on the new product launch. I heard the shower shut off upstairs. My hands were shaking as I powered down the phone and shoved it back where I'd found it. I grabbed the charger and walked back inside on autopilot, my brain trying to process what I'd just seen while my body went through the motions of normal life. Did you find it? Emily called from the bedroom. Yeah, got it. My voice sounded normal. Too normal, like it belonged to someone else. I set the charger on the kitchen counter and stood there, gripping the granite edge. The wedding photographer's invoice sat next to the mail pile, a reminder that we'd finally gotten around to ordering prints from our friend's wedding last month, where Emily had been my date, had held my hand during the ceremony, had whispered, "I love you," during the couple's vows. Which version was real? The woman who'd slow danced with me at that reception, or the one texting, "I love you too" to someone named Jay? Sophie ran into the kitchen, her dark curls bouncing, clutching her stuffed elephant. "Daddy, will you read me a story?" I scooped her up, breathing in the smell of her strawberry shampoo. "Of course, sweetie. Go pick one out." She scampered off to her room, and Emily emerged from the bedroom in yoga pants and one of my old college sweatshirts, toweling her hair. She looked exactly like she always did. Beautiful, familiar, mine. Except she wasn't mine anymore, was she? Maybe she never had been. "You okay?" she asked, studying my face. "You look pale." "Long day," I said. "The Kirkland account is being difficult." She kissed my cheek, and I had to force myself not to pull away. "Well, relax tonight. I'll handle Sophie's bedtime. You've been working so hard." The irony nearly made me laugh. I'd been working hard. I'd been coming home every night, being a father, being a husband, while she'd been, what? Planning her exit? Living a double life? "Actually, I need to tell you something," Emily said, pouring herself a glass of wine. "The conference in Portland got moved up. I have to leave Friday instead of next week." "Friday?" "The conference. Tell him you're at the conference." "That's sudden," I managed. "I know, it's annoying, but the keynote speaker had a scheduling conflict." She sipped her wine, meeting my eyes without a flicker of guilt. "I'll be back Sunday night. Your mom can watch Sophie on Saturday if you need to go into the office." She was good. Really good. If I hadn't seen those texts, I'd have believed every word. "Sure," I said. "No problem." After Sophie's bedtime, 3 books instead of 1, because I needed to hold on to something real and innocent. I sat in my home office and stared at my computer screen. Emily was downstairs watching some reality show, laughing at the TV like this was any other Tuesday night. I opened a browser and typed, "Divorce lawyers, Seattle, Washington." Then I stopped, closed the browser, opened it again. I'm not an impulsive person. I build financial models for a living. I analyze risk. I plan. And right now, I needed information before I made any moves. If Emily was having an affair, and those texts made it pretty clear she was, I needed to know who Jay was, how long this had really been going on, and what she was planning. "When are you going to tell David?" So she hadn't decided yet. Or maybe Jay was pushing her to leave and she was stalling. Either way, I had a window, a chance to get ahead of this before she blindsided me with divorce papers and some story that made me the bad guy. I pulled out my phone and started taking notes. Dates, times, every late work night I could remember, every weekend team building event, every business trip. The patterns emerged quickly. It was what I did best after all, find the truth in the numbers. And the truth was my wife had been lying to me for months. The laptop screen glowed in the darkness of my home office. Wednesday night, 11:47 p.m. Emily had gone to bed an hour ago, her breathing deep, and even when I'd checked on her, Sophie was asleep with her elephant tucked under one arm. I'd spent the last 3 hours building a spreadsheet. Dates, times, locations. Every late meeting and team-building event from the past 5 months, cross-referenced with her work calendar that synced to our shared family account. The patterns emerged like constellations, clear once you knew to look for them. November 22nd, dinner with clients. No meeting on her work calendar. December 8th, product launch prep, working late. Product launched 3 weeks prior. January 15th, strategy session offsite. Her boss was on vacation that week. I'd gotten sloppy with my own surveillance. Tuesday night, I'd followed her to yoga, watched her actually attend the class, then followed her home. But that was just one night. One data point. I needed more. The burner phone was back in her car, exactly where I'd found it. I'd photographed every message, backed them up to an encrypted cloud account Emily didn't know existed. The phone itself would stay put. I wasn't going to tip my hand by moving evidence around. My personal phone buzzed. A text from my brother Ryan in Austin. "You watching the game?" I stared at it for 10 seconds before remembering there was a basketball playoff game tonight. The Sonics didn't exist anymore, hadn't for years, but Ryan still texted me about sports like we were in college. "Working," I typed back. "It's almost midnight on a Wednesday, man. Emily got you on some deadline?" I almost laughed. Something like that. The cursor blinked in cell D47 of my spreadsheet. I'd run out of suspicious dates around January, but kept scrolling through her calendar anyway. March, April, May stretched ahead. How many of those future dates would be lies too? My phone buzzed again. Not Ryan this time, a calendar reminder. Sophie's pre-K parent-teacher conference Thursday, 3:30 p.m. Tomorrow. I'd completely forgotten. Emily had it on her calendar too. We'd planned to both attend, take off work early, maybe get ice cream with Sophie afterward. Normal family things. The kind of afternoon that would photograph well, that you'd remember years later as evidence of a happy childhood. I closed the spreadsheet and opened my email instead, searched for Portland conference. Emily's confirmation email from 2 weeks ago appeared. Pacific Northwest Marketing Summit, March 14th to 16th, River Place Hotel. The conference was real. I pulled up the event website, full schedule, speaker list, networking events. Emily's company logo appeared in the sponsor section. She could actually be attending sessions, legitimately working, and still find time to meet Jay. The perfect cover. I clicked through to the hotel website. River Place Hotel, downtown Portland, views of the Willamette River. Upscale, expensive. I checked our joint credit card account. No hotel charge. Either her company was paying or Jay was paying. My hands were shaking again. I gripped the edge of my desk, counted to 10, focused on breathing. The analytical part of my brain noted the physical response. Elevated heart rate, muscle tension, fight or flight activation. The rest of me wanted to walk into our bedroom and demand answers. Instead, I opened a new browser tab and searched for private investigators in the Seattle area. 12 firms appeared in the results. I clicked through their websites, reading carefully. Most specialized in insurance fraud or corporate investigations. 3 mentioned domestic cases or marital infidelity. I bookmarked all 3. Then I sat back and thought about what I was doing. Hiring a P, I meant escalating. It meant I'd moved past shock and into action. It also meant spending money Emily would eventually notice, unless I used my separate account, the one I'd kept from before we married. I had maybe $8,000 in there. Emergency fund. Rainy day money. It was pouring. I drafted an email to the most professional-looking firm, Cascade Investigative Services. Kept it brief, factual. Suspected infidelity, wife traveling to Portland Friday, needed surveillance and documentation. I typed my personal email address, the one Emily never checked, and my cell number. My finger hovered over the send button. Once I sent this, there was no pretending anymore. No chance I was wrong. No possibility of misunderstanding. I'd be actively gathering evidence for divorce proceedings, building a case against my wife, the mother of my daughter. I hit send. The email whooshed away. 11:58 p.m. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark office, listening to the house settle around me. The refrigerator hummed downstairs. A car passed on the street outside. Normal sounds. Everything normal except nothing was normal at all. My phone lit up. Another text from Ryan. Sonics would have won that game. Probably, I typed back, then added, "Hey, random question. You still have that lawyer friend? The one who helped you with your lease dispute?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Yeah, Brandon Walsh. Why, you buying another property? Maybe. Just want to talk to someone about contracts. I'll text you his info. He's good. Expensive, but good. Thanks. The dots appeared one more time, then stopped. Ryan knew better than to push. We'd been brothers long enough that he could read the spaces between my words. I stood up, stretched, felt my spine crack. Tomorrow I'd go to Sophie's parent-teacher conference and smile at her artwork and nod when her teacher talked about her progress with letters. I'd hold Emily's hand in the hallway, and we'd look like what we were supposed to be. Parents, partners, a team. Friday, Emily would drive to Portland. Or maybe she'd fly. I hadn't checked that yet. Either way, she'd go to her conference and her affair, and I'd stay here with Sophie, the faithful husband, the devoted father, the fool who didn't know. Except I did know. And by Friday, I'd have a private investigator following her every move. I walked upstairs quietly, avoiding the 3rd step that creaked. Checked on Sophie first. Still sleeping. Elephant still tucked close. Her nightlight cast shadows shaped like stars across her ceiling. She'd picked it out herself at Target, insisted on stars instead of princesses. "Stars are real, Daddy," she'd said. "Princesses are just pretend." I pulled her blanket up higher and kissed her forehead. She smelled like strawberry shampoo and childhood innocence. Whatever happened next, whatever Emily and I did to each other, Sophie wouldn't be pretend. She'd be real, and she'd be mine. Our bedroom was dark. Emily's shape under the covers, her breathing steady. I stood in the doorway and watched her sleep. Tried to reconcile this woman, my wife, Sophie's mother, the person I'd chosen to build a life with the woman texting, "I love you" to someone named Jay. She shifted, rolled toward me, and for a second I thought she was awake. But her eyes stayed closed, her breathing unchanged. Just movement and sleep. Innocent. I got ready for bed in the bathroom, brushed my teeth, stared at my reflection in the mirror. I looked tired. Older than 36. The bathroom light was unflattering, but still. I looked like a man who'd been gut-punched and was trying not to show it. When I slipped into bed, Emily murmured something and moved closer. Her hand found my arm, curled around it. An automatic gesture, muscle memory from 6 years of marriage. Her skin was warm. I lay there in the dark, her hand on my arm, and thought about Friday. 2 more days. 48 hours of pretending everything was fine while I gathered evidence and hired investigators and built my case. I could do 48 hours. I'd done 3 days already. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Email notification. I picked it up carefully, dimmed the screen. Response from Cascade Investigative Services, timestamped 12:14 a.m. Mr. Fletcher, received your inquiry. Can meet tomorrow, Thursday, 5 p.m. if available. Our office or neutral location. Please confirm. Dale Preston, senior investigator tomorrow at 5, an hour and a half after Sophie's parent-teacher conference. I typed back, confirmed. Your office. Thank you. Emily's breathing stayed steady beside me. Her hand was still on my arm. I set the phone down and closed my eyes, knowing I wouldn't sleep. The parent-teacher conference was at 4. I'd completely forgotten about it until Sophie reminded me that morning, tugging on my sleeve while I made her breakfast. Daddy, you and Mommy come to school today, Miss Kelly said. That's right, sweetie. I managed a smile, flipping her pancake. We'll both be there. Emily looked up from her phone, the regular one, and frowned. What time? 4 o'clock, I said, keeping my voice level. It's been on the calendar for 3 weeks. She checked her phone calendar, and I watched something flicker across her face. Annoyance, maybe. Or calculation. Right. Okay, I'll make it work. I wondered what she was rearranging. What lies she'd have to adjust. The spreadsheet in my mind added another row. Wednesday, March 15th. Had to reschedule something to attend daughter's parent-teacher conference. We drove separately to Sophie's preschool. Emily cited a meeting that would run late, which might have been true or might have been another lie. I'd stopped being able to tell the difference. Bright beginnings. Preschool occupied a converted church in downtown Bellevue. All colorful murals and tiny furniture. I arrived first, sitting in one of the child-sized chairs outside Miss Kelly's classroom, my knees nearly touching my chest. Other parents walked past, some nodding in recognition. The Patels, the Johnsons, normal families doing normal things. Emily arrived at 4:03, slightly breathless, wearing the navy dress she'd left the house in that morning. No wardrobe changes, at least not today. She sat in the chair next to mine, and I caught her perfume, something floral I'd bought her for Christmas. Before I knew. Everything was divided that way now, before and after. Sorry, she said. Traffic on 520 was terrible. It's fine, we're not late. Miss Kelly opened the door, smiling warmly. She was young, maybe 26, with the kind of endless patience that made her good with 4-year-olds. Mr. and Mrs. Fletcher, come in, come in. The classroom smelled like crayons and apple juice. Sophie's artwork covered one wall, her name spelled out in careful, wobbly letters, a painting of what might have been our family or might have been 3 blobs in different colors. Sophie is doing wonderfully, Miss Kelly began, pulling out a portfolio of work. Her fine motor skills have really developed. She's starting to write letters independently, and her social interactions have been very positive. Emily leaned forward, engaged in a way that seemed genuine. This was the thing that made it all so disorienting. She could compartmentalize so completely. Right now, In this moment, she was just Sophie's mom, concerned and attentive. The woman who'd been texting her lover about weekend getaways might as well not exist. She's been a little quieter this week, Miss Kelly continued, and I felt my attention sharpen. Nothing concerning, but I wanted to mention it. Has anything changed at home? Emily and I exchanged a glance. She got there first. Nothing major. I've had some late nights at work. Maybe she's picking up on that? Children are very perceptive, Miss Kelly agreed. Even small changes in routine can affect them. I thought about Sophie asking where Mommy was on Tuesday night. About the stuffed elephant she'd been carrying everywhere lately. A comfort object she'd mostly outgrown. She knew something was wrong. Maybe not what, but she felt it. The conference lasted 20 minutes. We reviewed Sophie's progress in numbers, letters, social development. Miss Kelly showed us her favorite activities, the art station, the reading corner. Normal parent things. I played my part, asked appropriate questions, nodded at appropriate times. Walking out to the parking lot, Emily touched my arm. She's doing so well. Yeah. I looked at her hand on my sleeve, remembered when that touch meant something uncomplicated. She is. I know I've been distracted lately, with the product launch and everything. She met my eyes and I saw something there. Guilt, maybe, or the performance of it. I'm going to try to be more present. The audacity of it hit me like a physical thing. Standing in a preschool parking lot, lying to my face while pretending to care about being a better mother. Part of me wanted to call her out right there, to watch her face when I mentioned the burner phone, but I had a meeting at 5. I needed her to keep believing I didn't know. That would be good, I said. For Sophie. She smiled, relieved, and I realized she'd been testing me, seeing if I suspected anything. And I'd passed, or failed, depending on how you looked at it. I should get back to the office, she said. There's a call with the West Coast team at 5. Another lie, probably. Or maybe not. Maybe she really did have a call, and the affair was just something she fit into the margins of her actual life. I didn't know anymore. Didn't know what was real and what was performance. See you at home, I said. I watched her drive away in her Lexus, then sat in my own car for a moment, breathing. My hands were shaking again. I gripped the steering wheel until they stopped. 4:47 p.m. 13 minutes to get to Cascade Investigative Services. The office was in a nondescript building off 405, sandwiched between a dentist and a tax preparation service. 3rd floor, suite 304. I'd researched them thoroughly. 15 years in business, former law enforcement, specializing in domestic investigations. Their reviews were professional, discreet, exactly what I needed. The waiting room was bland and quiet. Neutral beige walls, a few generic landscape prints, magazines fanned across a coffee table. A receptionist who looked about 60 smiled at me from behind a desk. David Fletcher? Mr. Brennan is ready for you. Thomas Brennan's office was more personal than the waiting room. Framed licenses on the wall, a photo of him with 2 teenage boys on a fishing boat. He stood when I entered, extending a hand. Mid-50s, graying hair, the kind of solid, unremarkable appearance that probably served him well in his line of work. Mr. Fletcher, please, sit. I sat in the leather chair across from his desk, the folder of printed evidence in my lap. I'd spent an hour the night before organizing it, screenshots of key messages, the spreadsheet of lies, a timeline. My analytical brain making order from chaos. I appreciate you seeing me on short notice, I said. You mentioned a time-sensitive situation. He folded his hands on the desk, attentive. Why don't you tell me what's going on? So I did. The discovery of the phone, the 5 months of messages, the Portland trip this Friday. I kept my voice steady, factual, like I was presenting a financial analysis to a client. Here are the data points. Here are the patterns. Here is what they suggest. Brennan listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. When I finished, he sat back in his chair. "You've done thorough documentation," he said. "That's going to be very helpful. What exactly are you looking for from us?" "I need to know who Jay is. I need evidence of the affair that will hold up in court. And I need to know if there's anything else I don't know about. Financial issues, other relationships, anything that could affect custody or the divorce settlement." He nodded slowly. "The Portland trip is an opportunity. If she's meeting this person, we can document it. Photos, video, timeline of events. It's straightforward surveillance work. How quickly can you mobilize?" "We have an investigator who can be in Portland Friday morning. I'll handle the local surveillance myself, following her from your home to the airport, confirming her movements. My associate will pick up the tail in Portland." He named a price, a retainer plus daily rates. It wasn't cheap, but I'd expected that. I'd already moved money from our joint savings to my individual account, just enough to cover it without raising flags. "There's something else," I said. "She can't know. Not yet. I need her to think everything is normal until I'm ready." "That's standard practice. We're very discreet." He paused. "I have to ask, have you consulted with a divorce attorney yet?" "I have a consultation tomorrow afternoon." "Good. You're doing this the right way. Gathering information first, understanding your options." He pulled out a contract. "Let's go over the terms." 20 minutes later, I walked out with a copy of the signed agreement and a burner phone of my own. A secure line for Brennan to contact me without Emily seeing calls on our phone bill. The irony wasn't lost on me. I sat in my car in the parking garage, holding the cheap plastic phone. In 3 days, I'd know who Jay was. I'd have proof. And then I could start dismantling the lie my marriage had become. My regular phone buzzed. A text from Emily. "Picking up Sophie from your mom's. Dinner at 7? I typed back. "Sounds good. I'll grab wine on the way home. Playing house, playing normal. Just a little longer." The knock on my office door came at 2:47 p.m. on Thursday. I knew because I'd been watching the clock obsessively since lunch, waiting for Emily's Portland trip tomorrow, waiting for something to break. "Mr. Fletcher, there's a Detective Ruiz here to see you." My assistant Karen's voice carried that careful neutrality people use when police show up at your workplace. Through the glass wall of my office, I could see heads turning at neighboring desks. "Send him in." The detective was maybe 50, gray threading through dark hair, wearing a sport coat that had seen better days. He carried the tired look of someone who'd been doing this job too long. "David Fletcher?" "Yes." "I'm Detective Ruiz, Seattle PD. I need to ask you some questions about your whereabouts last night." The floor tilted slightly. "Last night?" "Between approximately 9 p.m. and midnight. Were you at home?" I'd been following Emily. She'd told me she had a late meeting with the product team, would be home around 11. I'd watched her car leave our neighborhood at 8:45 p.m., followed her to a restaurant in downtown Seattle, Cascadia, one of those places with subdued lighting and a wine list thicker than most novels. I'd sat in my car across the street for 2 hours watching the entrance, photographing everyone who went in or out. She'd emerged at 10:52 p.m., alone, and driven straight home. I'd beaten her there by 10 minutes. "What's this about?" "Just answer the question, please." "I was home with my daughter. My wife had a work meeting." Detective Ruiz pulled out a small notebook. "Can anyone verify that?" "My daughter's 4. She was asleep by 8:30. The lie came easily. Too easily. "What happened?" "There was a homicide last night. Man named Brian Garrett, found in his apartment in Capitol Hill around 1 a.m. We're talking to people who might have information." Brian Garrett. The name meant nothing to me. I don't know anyone by that name. "Your wife does. They work together at Nexus Digital." The office suddenly felt airless. Emily worked at Nexus, the product team she'd supposedly been meeting with last night. I still don't understand what this has to do with me. Mr. Garrett's phone records show multiple calls to your wife's number over the past few months. We're trying to establish timelines, figure out who saw him last. Ruiz watched me carefully. When did your wife get home last night? Around 11, maybe a few minutes before. You're sure about that? I heard her car in the garage. Check the clock. 10:52. Too specific. I realized my mistake the moment the words left my mouth. People who are home watching TV half asleep don't remember times that precisely. Ruiz's eyes sharpened. That's very exact. I was waiting up. We have a security system that chimes when the garage opens. Another lie, but a better one. And she came straight inside? Yes. Didn't make any stops, run any errands? No. She came in, asked about Sophie, poured herself a glass of wine. Normal evening. What was her mood like? I thought about Emily standing at the kitchen counter, still in her work clothes, scrolling through her phone while Chardonnay sweated condensation onto the granite. She'd seemed distracted, but that was normal lately. Or what passed for normal in our house of lies. Fine, tired. She said the meeting ran long. Did she mention Brian Garrett? No, Ruiz made a note. We'll need to speak with your wife as well. Is she at work today? Yes. Nexus Digital, downtown office. I know where it is. He handed me a card. If you remember anything else, give me a call. After he left, I sat motionless at my desk, staring at the financial models on my screen without seeing them. Brian Garrett. Multiple calls to Emily's number. A homicide. I pulled out my personal phone, not the work one they could subpoena, and searched the name. The news was already online. Man found dead in Capitol Hill apartment, police investigating. No details beyond that. The article was 3 hours old. My hands were shaking as I opened the folder on my phone containing photographs of the burner phone messages. I scrolled back through 5 months of texts, looking for any mention of Brian, any B, any clue I'd missed. Nothing. But there wouldn't be, would there? The burner phone was for Jay. If Brian Garrett was calling her regular number, that was something else. Someone else. How many were there? I called Cascade Investigative Services. The receptionist put me through to Travis Klein. Mr. Fletcher, I was just about to call you. We have a problem with tomorrow's surveillance. Forget tomorrow. I need you to find out everything you can about Brian Garrett. Worked at Nexus Digital, found dead last night in Capitol Hill. Silence on the line. Then, the police are involved. A detective just left my office. What did you tell him? That I was home. That Emily was home by 11. Was she? Yes. Was she really? I closed my eyes. I followed her to a restaurant downtown, Cascadia, on First Avenue. She was there from about 9 until almost 11, then came straight home. Did you see who she was meeting? No, I stayed in my car. I couldn't risk her seeing me. But you have photos of the restaurant entrance? Time-stamped. Everyone who went in or out between 8:45 and 11 p.m. Send them to me, all of them. Klein's voice had gone flat, professional. And Mr. Fletcher, don't talk to the police again without a lawyer present. I didn't do anything. That's not the point. Your wife is connected to a homicide victim. You were following her last night. You lied to the police about your whereabouts. You need legal protection. After we hung up, I forwarded the photos to Klein's secure email. Then I sat there, trying to process. Brian Garrett had called Emily's regular phone multiple times over recent months. Jay communicated through the burner phone. Were they the same person? Different people? Was Emily involved in something worse than an affair? My office phone rang. Karen's voice. Your wife is online too. I picked up. Hey, David. Emily's voice was tight, controlled. The police just left. They asked me about Brian. They were here too. What did you tell them? Interesting question. Not what did they want or what's going on, but what did I tell them? Like she needed to know what story I'd given. The truth. That you had a late meeting, came home around 11. That's good. That's right. Relief in her voice. This is so awful. Brian was on my team. I can't believe he's dead. How well did you know him? Just work stuff. We collaborated on the spring product launch. A pause. They asked if I saw him last night. Did you? No, I was in that meeting until almost 10:30, then came straight home. You know that? But I did know that. I'd watched her car the entire time. She couldn't have gone to Brian Garrett's apartment. Unless she'd left the restaurant at some point while I was watching the front entrance. Unless there was a back exit I hadn't considered. David, you there? Yeah, sorry, this is just shocking. I know. Listen, about tomorrow, the Portland conference. I'm thinking maybe I should cancel. With everything happening at work. No. The word came out too fast, too sharp. I mean, you should go. They need you there, right? And the police will probably be done with their questions by then. Are you sure? Positive. Sophie and I will be fine. After she hung up, I realized what had just happened. Emily had been ready to cancel Portland, to cancel meeting Jay or whoever she was really planning to see. And I'd talked her into going, because I needed to know. I needed Travis Klein's team to follow her, to photograph her with whoever Jay was, to give me ammunition for the divorce that was coming. But now there was a dead man in the equation. A dead man who'd been calling my wife. And Emily had just tried to establish an alibi for last night. An alibi that depended on me confirming she'd come straight home. Which I'd done. Because I'd been following her. And she knew it. She had to know. The way she'd asked, "What did you tell them?" The relief in her voice when I'd confirmed her story. She knew I'd been watching her, knew I could verify her timeline. My stomach went cold. Emily wasn't creating an alibi for me. She was creating one for herself. Using my surveillance, my obsessive documentation of her movements, as proof she couldn't have been at Brian Garrett's apartment. She'd turned my investigation into her defense. The phone felt like a lead weight in my hand. Emily's voice was still in my ear, that carefully controlled tone, the one she used in client presentations when things were going sideways. David, are you still there? I'm here. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Around me, the office had gone quiet. People were pretending not to watch while absolutely watching. The police just left my office. They asked me about last night. About Brian. I waited. Let her fill the silence. I told them I came straight home after dinner. That you were there when I got back, around 11. A pause. You were there, weren't you? The question hung between us, loaded with meaning. She knew. She absolutely knew I'd been following her. Had she seen me in the parking garage? On the street? Or had she just sensed it, the way you sense someone's eyes on you in a crowd? Yeah, I said. I was there. Good. Relief flooded her voice, but underneath it was something else, something calculating. That's what I told them, that we were both home by 11. The detective was still standing near the elevators, talking quietly with building security, watching me. I need to go, I said. We'll talk when I get home. David, I ended the call. My hands were shaking again. I pressed them flat against my desk, feeling the cool laminate under my palms. The numbers on my screen had lost all meaning. Emily had just given herself an alibi using my surveillance of her, which meant she needed an alibi, which meant she'd been somewhere she shouldn't have been after I'd lost her trail. Brian Garrett was dead. Emily had been meeting him, or near him, last night, and now she was using me to cover for it. I pulled up my phone and opened the tracking app. Emily's location showed her still at work, the blue dot pulsing steadily over her office building in downtown Seattle. The burner phone was there too. I'd installed tracking software on it 3 days ago when she'd left it charging in the kitchen for 20 minutes. 2 phones, 1 location. Normal. I scrolled back through yesterday's timeline. The burner phone had stayed at her office until 6:47 p.m., then moved to the restaurant downtown. It had remained there until 9:23 p.m., then traveled back toward Bellevue. The signal had stopped moving at 9:52 p.m. at our house. But Emily's regular phone told a different story. Her iPhone had left the office at 6:45 p.m., gone to the same restaurant, but then at 8:17 p.m. it had traveled south. Way south. The location history showed it had stopped at an address in Georgetown, the industrial neighborhood south of downtown, at 8:34 p.m. It had stayed there until 10:41 p.m. before heading home. I felt cold sweat prickle along my spine. She'd left the burner phone at the restaurant, probably in her car in the parking garage, creating a digital trail that showed her at dinner the whole evening. But she'd taken her regular phone and gone somewhere else for 2 hours. To meet Brian Garrett. My desk phone rang. I stared at it for 3 rings before picking up. Fletcher. Mr. Fletcher, this is Dale Preston. We need to talk. The PI's voice was tight, clipped. Not his usual measured tone. Now's not a good time. I'm parked outside your building, silver Camry, northwest corner of the lot. 5 minutes. He hung up. I looked toward the elevators. The detective was gone. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the stairs, avoiding the main lobby. My manager glanced up as I passed, but didn't stop me. The whole floor had probably heard about the police visit by now. The March air hit me as I pushed through the emergency exit. Cold and damp, typical Seattle spring. I spotted the Camry and walked over, sliding into the passenger seat. Dale Preston looked like he hadn't slept. His tie was loose, shirt wrinkled. He handed me a manila envelope without preamble. The Portland trip is off. She canceled her hotel reservation this morning. I opened the envelope. Photographs. Emily at the restaurant last night, walking in at 6:51 p.m. A man meeting her, tall, dark hair, expensive suit. Not Brian Garrett. I'd seen Garrett's LinkedIn photo. This was someone else. Someone who looked a lot like the description of Jay I'd built in my head. They had drinks, Preston said. Talked for about 90 minutes. She seemed agitated. Lots of hand gestures. He kept trying to calm her down. He pointed to another photo. Then she got a call at 8:15. You can see her face change. She left immediately. The photo showed Emily standing, phone pressed to her ear, her expression tight with tension. I followed her, Preston continued. She drove south, fast. Georgetown area. Industrial buildings, warehouses. She parked on a side street and walked to a building. Looked like converted loft apartments. She was inside for about 2 hours. What address? He rattled it off. I pulled out my phone and checked Emily's location history. It matched exactly. I couldn't get close enough to see which unit. But at 10:38 p.m., emergency vehicles arrived. Police, ambulance, the whole block lit up. Your wife came out 7 minutes later, walked to her car, and drove home. My mouth had gone dry. Did the police see her? I don't know. There was a lot of confusion, but here's the thing. He pulled out another photo. This guy showed up about 10 minutes after she did. The photo showed the same man from the restaurant, the one Emily had been meeting. He was getting out of a Tesla, looking toward the building where Emily had gone. He went inside, came running out when the police arrived, got in his car and left. I got his plate. Preston handed me a slip of paper. Ran it this morning. Car is registered to Jason Milbrook, age 32, works at the same company as your wife, senior product manager. Jason. There's more, Preston said. I did some digging on Brian Garrett. He filed a complaint with HR 3 weeks ago against Jason Milbrook. Claimed Milbrook was having an inappropriate relationship with a married colleague and using company resources to cover it up. HR was investigating. The pieces were sliding into place, forming a picture I didn't want to see. Garrett knew about the affair, I said slowly. He was going to expose it. That's my read, and last night he ended up dead. Preston's expression was grim. Mr. Fletcher, I need to ask you something. Where were you between 8 and 11 last night? Following my wife. I lost her after the restaurant. Can anyone verify that? No, I was alone in my car. Preston was quiet for a moment. The police are going to want to talk to you again. When they verify your wife's phone records, they'll see she called you multiple times yesterday. They'll want to know about your marriage, your relationship with Garrett. I never met Garrett. Doesn't matter. You're the husband. She's a suspect. That makes you a person of interest. He leaned back in his seat. You need a lawyer, a criminal defense lawyer, not a divorce attorney. I didn't kill anyone. I believe you. But you lied to a detective this morning. You gave your wife a false alibi. That's obstruction of justice if they can prove you knew she was lying. The car felt too small, too hot despite the cold air outside. What do I do? That's up to you. But if I were you, I'd think very carefully about whether you want to keep protecting someone who's using you as a shield. Preston's eyes were steady on mine. She knew you were following her. She left that burner phone in the car deliberately. She created a false trail, then used your surveillance to back up her story. She's smart. And she's setting you up to take the fall if this goes bad. My phone buzzed. A text from Emily. We need to talk tonight, after Sophie goes to bed. I showed it to Preston. Don't meet her alone, he said. Record everything. And for God's sake, get a lawyer before you say anything else to the police. I got out of the car, legs unsteady. The office building loomed above me, full of people living normal lives. People who weren't tangled up in murder investigations. People whose wives weren't killers. Because that's what this was pointing to. Emily had gone to meet Brian Garrett. Garrett had ended up dead. And now she was using me to cover her tracks. My phone rang again. Unknown number. Mr. Fletcher? This is Detective Raymond Cooper. I need you to come down to the station. We have some follow-up questions. The conference room at Seattle PD's Criminal Investigation Division had the same antiseptic smell as every government building I'd ever been in. Industrial cleaner trying to mask decades of accumulated human anxiety. Detective Ruiz sat across from me, a manila folder closed in front of him. His partner, a younger detective whose nameplate read K. Walsh, leaned against the wall by the door. Thanks for coming in, Mr. Fletcher. Ruiz's voice carried the practiced neutrality of someone who'd conducted 1,000 interrogations. We just have a few follow-up questions about Friday night. Friday, 3 days ago. The night Brian Garrett died while I was parked 2 blocks away, watching my wife's car outside Cascadia Restaurant. Of course. My hands rested flat on the table. I'd learned that from depositions at work. Still hands, project calm, confidence. Even when your pulse is hammering against your collar. Ruiz opened the folder. You stated that your wife came home around 10:50 that night. Can you walk me through the evening again? What time did she leave? Around 6:30. The lie came easier the second time. She said she was meeting a colleague for dinner. Work stuff. Did she mention who? No. That part was true. Walsh shifted against the wall. And you were home all evening? With your daughter? Sophie, yes. We had dinner, I gave her a bath, put her to bed around 8. Normal Friday night. Ruiz made a note. What did you do after Sophie went to sleep? The question felt loaded. Watch TV, Worked on some financial models for a client presentation. Your wife didn't call or text during the evening? No. Also true. Emily had been radio silent until she walked through our front door at 11, her face composed, her story ready. Ruiz pulled out a photograph and slid it across the table. Security camera footage, timestamp visible, 8:47 p.m. Emily's Lexus, clearly identifiable by the license plate, parked on a street I didn't recognize. Industrial area, by the look of it. This is your wife's vehicle, correct? My throat tightened. Yes. This was taken about a mile from Brian Garrett's apartment, 45 minutes before emergency services were called. Ruiz's eyes never left my face. So I'll ask again. Are you certain your wife came home around 10:50? The room felt smaller. Walsh had straightened, no longer casual against the wall. They knew. Not everything, maybe, but enough to know I'd lied. I could double down. Insist I'd been mistaken about the time, that I'd fallen asleep on the couch and only noticed when she came upstairs. But Preston's words echoed in my head. She's setting you up to take the fall. I need to revise my statement. The words came out steady. I wasn't completely honest before. Ruiz leaned forward slightly. Go on. I knew Emily was having an affair. I'd found evidence, a second phone, messages. That Friday, I followed her to the restaurant. I wanted to see who she was meeting. Walsh pulled out a chair and sat down, suddenly interested. Did you? Jason Millbrook. I recognized him from Emily's company directory. I kept my voice level, analytical. Just presenting facts. They had dinner. I waited in my car. Around 8:15, Emily got a phone call and left quickly. Jason stayed behind. I tried to follow her, but I lost her in traffic near the I-5 interchange. What time did you give up? Around 8:45. I went home. Ruiz made another note. And when did your wife actually return home? 11. Maybe 5 after. Why did you lie to us? This was the pivot point. Tell them I was protecting Emily, and I looked complicit. Tell them I was protecting myself, and I looked guilty of something else. I panicked. When you showed up asking about her alibi, I didn't know what had happened. I just knew that if Emily was involved in something, and I admitted I'd been following her, I let the sentence trail off. I have a 4-year-old daughter. I didn't want to complicate things if it turned out to be nothing. But it's not nothing, Walsh said. Brian Garrett is dead. I understand that now. Ruiz pulled out another photograph. Jason Millbrook, same street, different angle. Timestamp, 8:58 p.m. Mr. Millbrook's vehicle arrived at the same location 11 minutes after your wife. He left at 10:36, 2 minutes before emergency services were called. I stared at the photo. Jason had followed Emily, just like I had. But he'd succeeded where I'd failed. We've been trying to reach Mr. Millbrook since Saturday, Ruiz continued. He's not at his apartment, not answering his phone. His vehicle was found abandoned at SeaTac Airport's long-term parking. Do you know where he might have gone? No. Has your wife mentioned him since Friday? She doesn't know I know about the affair. Past tense felt wrong, but I couldn't correct it without revealing more. We haven't really talked since then. Walsh leaned forward. Mr. Fletcher, we're going to need your wife to come in for an interview. Today, if possible. She's at work. Then call her. Tell her to come home. We'll send a unit to pick her up. Voluntarily for now. Ruiz's emphasis on the last 2 words was deliberate. My phone sat on the table between us. I picked it up, pulled up Emily's number. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. She's not answering. Try her office. I dialed Nexus Digital's main line, asked for Emily Fletcher. The receptionist put me through. 2 rings. David? Emily's voice carried surprise and something else. Wariness. Is everything okay? Is Sophie? Sophie's fine. I'm at the police station. They need you to come in for an interview about Brian Garrett. Silence stretched across the line. When Emily spoke again, her voice had changed. Flatter, more controlled. What did you tell them? Ruiz and Walsh were watching me. I kept my expression neutral. The truth. That I followed you Friday night. That I lost you after the restaurant. Another pause. I see. They want you to come home. They're sending someone to pick you up. I'll need to talk to a lawyer first. That's your right, Ruiz said, loud enough for the phone to pick up. But we'd appreciate your cooperation, Mrs. Fletcher. The sooner we can clear up some timeline questions, the better. Who is that? Emily asked. Detective Ruiz. He's investigating Brian's death. Tell him I'll call my attorney and contact him within the hour. The line went dead. I set the phone down. She's getting a lawyer. Smart, Walsh said, though her tone suggested it was anything but. Ruiz closed his folder. Mr. Fletcher, I'm going to be direct with you. Your wife was at or near a murder scene during the window when that murder occurred. Her affair partner was also there. The victim had filed a complaint about their relationship 3 weeks before he died. You following her that night, losing her, then lying about her alibi, that's a problem for you. I understand. Do you? Ruiz stood. Because from where I'm sitting, you either helped cover up a murder, or your wife manipulated you into doing it without your knowledge. Either way, you're exposed. The word hit like a fist. Exposed. Preston had used it too. They were both right. I didn't know anyone had died until you showed up Saturday morning, I said. I was trying to protect my family. By lying to police investigating a homicide? Walsh shook her head. That's obstruction at minimum. Depending on what we find, it could be accessory after the fact. My analytical mind, usually so good at calculating risk, spun uselessly. The variables were too complex, the outcomes too catastrophic. Ruiz walked to the door, opened it. You're free to go for now, but don't leave the Seattle area. And Mr. Fletcher, if your wife tries to contact you before we interview her, record the conversation. Anything she says that contradicts her statement to us, we need to know. I stood on legs that felt disconnected from my body. Am I going to need a lawyer? I'd recommend it, Ruiz said. Sooner rather than later. The hallway outside seemed too bright after the dim conference room. I made it to the elevator before my hands started shaking. By the time I reached my car in the parking garage, I had 3 missed calls from Emily and a text. Don't say anything else to them. I'm serious, David. Too late for that. I sat in the driver's seat, engine off, and pulled up Preston's number. He answered on the first ring. How'd it go? They know I lied. They have security footage of Emily's car near Garrett's apartment. Jason Milbrook's too. I gripped the steering wheel. Jason's gone. Left his car at the airport. Preston swore softly. Smart move on his part. Dumb move for your wife. She's still here. They want to interview her. She's calling a lawyer. Good. Letter. You need one too, separate from hers. I can recommend someone. Preston. I closed my eyes. What did Emily do? That's the question, isn't it? His voice was grim. But here's what I know. She went to Garrett's place, stayed for 2 hours, and left right when the police showed up. That's not coincidence. That's not bad timing. That's being there when it happened. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Emily's defense attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Lawson who cost more than my annual salary, built a careful narrative. Emily had gone to Brian Garrett's apartment to confront him about the HR complaint. Yes, she'd been having an affair with Jason Milbrook. Yes, Brian had threatened to expose it. But when she arrived that night, Brian was already dead. She'd panicked, called Jason, and fled when she heard sirens. The prosecution told a different story. Emily and Jason had conspired to silence Brian Garrett before his complaint destroyed both their careers. The burner phone, the elaborate cover story, the coordinated arrival at the crime scene, it all pointed to premeditation. I testified on day 12. Told the jury about following Emily, about the lies, about finding the burner phone. Patricia Lawson tried to paint me as a jealous husband seeking revenge, but the evidence spoke louder than her insinuations. The tracking data, the photographs, the timeline, I documented everything with the same precision I brought to financial analysis. It was that documentation that buried her. The jury deliberated for 3 days. Guilty of second-degree murder. Jason Milbrook, extradited from Costa Rica 4 months into the trial, took a plea deal and testified against her. 20 years to life. Sophie was 5 when her mother went to prison. Old enough to ask questions I couldn't answer honestly. We told her mommy had to go away for a while, that she'd made some very bad choices. Sophie cried for weeks, clutching her stuffed elephant, asking when mommy was coming home. I sold the house in Bellevue. Too many ghosts. We moved to a smaller place in Kirkland, closer to my parents. My mother helped with childcare while I rebuilt our lives from the wreckage. The legal fees, the therapy bills, the weight of being a single father. Some days it felt like drowning in slow motion. Emily writes letters from prison. I don't read them. Sophie's therapist says maybe someday when she's older she can decide if she wants contact. For now, we're focusing on stability, routine, healing. Preston's final report sits in a safety deposit box, along with all the evidence I gathered. I look at it sometimes, trying to pinpoint the exact moment everything went wrong. Was it when Emily met Jason? When Brian Garrett discovered the affair? When I found that burner phone and chose to investigate instead of confront? But I know the truth. The moment was earlier. Somewhere in the ordinary days when Emily and I stopped being partners and became strangers sharing a mortgage. When comfort became complacency. When I love you became autopilot instead of intention. Sophie starts first grade in the fall. She's resilient in the way children are, adapting to our new normal with a flexibility that breaks my heart. She talks about mommy less now. Sometimes I catch her looking at old photographs with an expression I can't quite read. Not sadness, exactly. Something more like confused distance, like she's trying to remember someone she used to know. I never remarried. The thought of trusting someone that completely again feels impossible. But I've learned to be present for Sophie in ways I wasn't before. Really present, not just physically there while my mind churned through spreadsheets and projections. We have Friday movie nights, weekend hikes, bedtime stories that stretch past her bedtime because she asks, just one more. The irony isn't lost on me. I gained full custody, kept the assets, won in every legal sense. But victory tastes like ash when your daughter draws pictures of a family that no longer exists. There's a photograph on my desk at work. Sophie at her kindergarten graduation, gap-toothed smile, holding a certificate for Best Helper. She's wearing a yellow dress my mother bought her, her dark curls pulled back with clips shaped like butterflies. She looks happy. That's what I focus on now. Not the marriage that imploded, not the investigation that consumed me, not the woman I thought I knew who turned out to be someone else entirely. Just that smile, that moment. That little girl who deserves better than the hand she was dealt. My colleagues don't ask about Emily anymore. The story made enough headlines that everyone knows, but time has moved on. There are new scandals, new tragedies, new reasons for people to whisper in break rooms. I'm just David Fletcher again. Financial analyst, single father, guy who brings his daughter to the office Christmas party. Last week, Sophie asked if people who make bad choices can ever be good again. We were driving home from school, rain streaking the windows, the question coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. I think so, I told her, choosing my words carefully. But they have to really want to change, and they have to accept the consequences of what they did. Will mommy change? I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so. She was quiet for a moment, then, I'm glad I have you, Daddy. My throat tightened. I'm glad I have you too, Sophie Bug. That's the lesson, I suppose. Not about trust or betrayal or the elaborate lies people tell themselves and each other. It's simpler and harder than that. You can't control what other people do. You can only control how you respond. You can drown in anger and betrayal, let it poison everything that comes after. Or you can choose the people who remain, the moments that matter, the small redemptions of ordinary days. I chose Sophie. I choose her every day. Emily made her choices too. She chose Jason over her marriage. She chose silence over honesty. And in the end, whether she killed Brian Garrett herself or was simply there when it happened, she chose to let me provide her alibi rather than face the truth. Some nights, I still wonder about the version of our life that might have existed if she'd just talked to me. If she'd said, I'm unhappy, or I've met someone, or I don't love you anymore. It would have hurt. We would have divorced. Sophie would have split time between two homes. But she'd still have a mother who wasn't in prison. And I'd still have the naive belief that people, fundamentally, choose honesty when it matters most. That belief is gone now. In its place is something harder, more resilient. The understanding that you can do everything right, be faithful, be present, be the partner you promised to be, and still end up collateral damage in someone else's bad decisions. But you survive it. You document the evidence. You protect your child. You rebuild from the foundation up. You learn that winning isn't about vindication or justice or even truth. It's about waking up every morning and choosing forward motion over paralysis. Sophie starts first grade in 3 weeks. We've been shopping for school supplies. Her excitement over new pencils and folders, a reminder that life continues in small, beautiful ways despite everything. She wants the backpack with stars on it. Stars are real, Daddy, she said, just like she did with that nightlight years ago. They're always there, even when you can't see them. I bought her the backpack with stars, because she's right. Some things remain constant even when everything else falls apart. The love you have for your child, the choice to keep going, the stubborn, defiant hope that tomorrow might be better than today. That's not the ending I imagined when I found that burner phone in Emily's car. But it's the ending I have. And for Sophie's sake, for my own sake, I'm learning to make peace with it. The story doesn't end with justice or closure or neat moral lessons. It ends with a father and daughter building a life from the ruins of the old one. It ends with acceptance that some questions, why, how, what if, don't have answers that satisfy. It ends with choosing to live anyway,